Hello, hello. Welcome back to Reignite Your Soul podcast. I am your host, Laura Plahuta, and I am very excited to be back with you for another episode where we will be expanding our minds, opening our hearts, and embodying an entirely new way of being. So I had the absolute pleasure this morning of having a conversation with a class of grade sixes. And it was the most incredible conversation. And I know that some of the students will be listening to the podcast. So if you were on that with me, then hello. It was an absolute pleasure to have that chat with you. And I wanted to come on here today to chat a little bit about some of the things that we spoke about in that conversation, because it is really information that is valuable for people of all ages, as we are all human beings. And I know there is a lot of separation and segregation in the world, when my intention with everything that I do is to bring unity back to the world and back to all of us, seeing how we are all a part of the same human race. And so some of the things that we had chatted about today, and that I'm going to chat a little bit about on this podcast episode, is a little bit about the different voices that we have within, our mind's voice versus our heart's voice. And a little bit about how other people may react toward us, moving toward our dreams, our goals, our visions, and what makes us happiest in this lifetime. And I may even share a little bit more about my journey and my story, but I may leave that for another podcast episode. So I know I haven't really opened up on here and shared about my personal stuff. I've had a lot of interviews and stuff lately, so that is something that I'm going to be doing a little bit more coming up in the future, sharing more about my story and some teachings and stuff that I'm learning on a day-to-day basis, because I'm always learning new things, as I'm sure you are as well. So to jump right into this, we have multiple voices within. And when we're children, we're very creative. And these imaginary beings or imaginary voices or imaginary people are more accepted than when we are adults. And this has kind of somewhat limited us in our ability to self-coach ourselves, to self-nurture ourselves. And so what I'm going to share with you today is really a technique that you can use to start self-nurturing yourself. And when we can learn how to self-nurture ourselves, we can truly learn how to accomplish anything that we want in life, because we really start stepping into our independence. We start stepping into our sovereignty, and we allow ourselves to start achieving things that maybe we never thought that we would achieve before in this lifetime, just because we're simply taking things moment by moment and nurturing ourselves in the moment as we require it, and no longer seek it from the outside to fill these needs within ourselves. So one of the things that I shared with the class of grade sixes was I asked them if they were aware that that little voice that you could hear in your head sometimes that is limiting or saying mean things or maybe discouraging or maybe not believing in what you actually want is a voice that every single person in the class has, every single human has. And many of them, if not all of them, did not realize that everybody has this little voice. And it may seem obvious, maybe to you or maybe not, that every human does have this little limiting voice. And it's normal. It's a normal part of life. But without understanding this, when I was a child, I know that I started making that voice have a lot more power over me than it actually required. And so this little voice, you can imagine it as if it's like this little lizard sitting on our shoulder, bringing in your creativity and your imagination into this. So you've got this little lizard sitting on your shoulder. And this lizard, it's a lizard because we have this lizard part of our brain, this primal, protective, safety piece in our mind that is just there to keep us safe. And that's what this little voice is this little voice that's trying to keep us safe. And understanding that when that little voice comes up, we can start treating it a different way, opposed to treating it as if it is the only voice that we have. And that voice can get very loud. So you may not even recognize that there is another voice that you have within, which I will share more about and help you to reconnect back with that other little voice that is actually your true voice. But over time, especially depending on how old you are, when we've fed into the belief that this little voice, this little lizard voice is actually truth within ourselves, and we start believing it, that we aren't capable of doing certain things, or we're not good enough, or that people are going to judge us, or we're going to be rejected, then it is easier to play small and to stay in our little cave of safety. And that's great for if your core values are really comfort and safety. However, if you are wanting other core things in your life like play and freedom and joy, then it doesn't necessarily bring you to those places living strictly from this place of this primal instinct of our brain. And so that was kind of like the primal part of our brain that is all about safety, keeping us alive. And so that's what this little voice is it's a record of the past. So those little pieces that are saying, oh, stay safe, oh, don't do this, don't do that, oh, you aren't good enough for this. It's all just there to keep us safe because something happened in our past where we learned to pick up these stories and it kept us safe. As a little short Cole's Notes. And then we also have this higher complex part of our minds that as humans evolved, we started developing more complex parts of ourselves and having higher intellect. And this part of our brain allows us to do incredible, beautiful things and really be able to learn things and strive for things and achieve things and be creative and bring our creative contributions to the world. But sometimes this little lizard voice can be louder that we can't even hear what our hobbies are, what our passions are, what are the things that excite us anymore. And so I like to say that this other kind of part, this other voice within us is actually our heart's voice. And this is just our soul speaking through our heart. And that voice is really the true voice. And sometimes it can be very quiet where we don't really understand or even know what that little voice is saying anymore. And so one of the things that we can do is when we hear this little lizard voice saying those little things where, oh, don't do that, it's not safe to do that, or you're going to be bullied, or all of these little things that this little voice, this little lizard voice is saying, if we treat it as if it was somebody that we love, right? If we really honor this part of ourselves that is feeling fearful and we hold compassion for this part of ourselves, and have a little conversation with it and just say, like, thank you so much for sharing that. Like, I appreciate that you're wanting to keep me safe, or that you feel like people are going to reject me if I do that, right? I appreciate you really bringing that forward to this conversation. And it may seem weird when you kind of think about it, that you're kind of having this inner dialogue with yourself, right? We've been taught right from young, likely, that we shouldn't be having these inner dialogues or talking to yourself, or you're labeled a crazy person and you're going to go into a psych ward or all of these things, right? But it's normal human psyche for us to have these different parts within ourselves. And it's actually very healthy when you can learn to cultivate a relationship with yourself from a place of love, because we treat others the way that we treat ourselves. And if we're not experiencing healthy relationships with others, which many of us aren't because of the way that we've been conditioned in society, with our relationship with ourselves. So as we shift our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with others will also change. So it really does start with this, building this relationship with yourself when it comes to this little lizard voice. And are you able to actually nurture this part of yourself that is feeling fearful, is feeling doubtful, is feeling worrisome, is doubting what you're capable of? Are you able to find compassion and love for that little lizard that's inside of you that is just wanting to keep you safe? And so that may be something that you might want to pause this recording and just journal on that, you know? What would it look like for you to be able to love that voice a little bit more? What would it look like for you to be able to have more compassion and empathy for yourself as you move through things in life, knowing that every single human is learning and growing, including you. Nobody knows everything. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know. I know for myself anyway. And it's really humbling when you can kind of come from that place of understanding that we don't know everything and learning how to have that inner dialogue with yourself. So those are some questions you can pause this and start journaling on, or even just take some time to wander on that. And so when we can start loving and nurturing all of these parts of ourselves that maybe we've abandoned, we've disowned, we've kind of shoved to the side, we pretend like it doesn't exist, right? And a lot of these behaviors, when we think about relationship dynamics, we think about maybe anxious attachments or avoidant attachments, or there's secure, healthy attachments. And it can be the same exactly with your relationship with this lizard, right? Or maybe you're just ignoring altogether, right? The avoidant. Or maybe you're feeling very anxious when this voice comes up. And so building that relationship with that lizard or ego part of yourself is really going to help you to come to that place of healthy, secure attachment within yourself and bringing acceptance and love to all parts of yourself. And so the very first thing to do is really acknowledgement that this voice exists, right? If we keep pretending like it doesn't exist, or we give it full power over ourselves, then we can kind of swing either way, and neither of them are really serving us. The reality of it is that we really just have to acknowledge it, right? Not shoving it off anymore, not ignoring it, not pretending like it's doing anything wrong, but coming from that place of, thank you so much for sharing this with me. Like, isn't that interesting that you're sharing that right now? And when you do that, taking a nice big deep breath in and then exhaling and just providing your body a little bit of space to just be. When we allow our body to create that space, it allows us that opportunity to bring in the love or bring in the acceptance for that part of ourselves. And the more that we can do that, the more we start cultivating this relationship with that part of ourselves, whatever that voice is saying in that moment. And just by acknowledging it, you'll notice that the discomfort in your body will actually reduce. When you acknowledge it and you thank it for that voice, and you provide love and compassion for it, for what it's moving through, and then you take that big deep breath in and then exhale, you'll notice that that emotional response in your body actually does get less. And one of the things that we can do as well with these little voices in our mind from this lizard is we can just witness them and become the observer of them, knowing that our thoughts are not, they're not us. They do not create our identity, right? And we can just witness them. Oh, isn't that interesting that that thought just came up? Or, oh, isn't that an interesting awareness? Thank you for sharing that. Like, thank you for bringing that to my awareness, right? And just witness them and just watching them as if they're clouds floating on by, and just see them float away. Because in reality, it's only when we attach to them, when we grab onto one of those thoughts or one of those clouds as they're floating on and by in the sky, if we grab onto it with our energy, or we provide an attachment to it, or create a meaning around that thought or a story around that thought, that's where we then give it power. Right? So those are some things that you can do to disempower those little lizard thoughts that are not empowering you, is just witness them, maybe journaling them. I'm sure you've maybe heard of me before, just like free flow brain dumping. So just allowing that lizard to have a voice. So writing down all of the stories of the fears and the things that you're worried about and all of that stuff, and just putting it on paper, and then acknowledging yourself through that. Maybe wrapping your arms around your body as you're reading those things. Placing your hands on your heart and reading them with compassion, as if it was somebody else saying it. If it was a child that was reading this stuff to you, like how would you hold space for that part of yourself or that other child? So the first thing is acknowledging it and just witnessing it, and not providing any attachment to it. And then the second part of it is really understanding that we have a different voice within, that sometimes we forget about because we've been told that what we want doesn't matter. Sometimes we will do what other people want just so that we receive acceptance, validation, love, all just patterns picked up from our childhood. And so inviting you, like right now in this moment, if you're open to it, to just close your eyes down and bow your head slightly down toward your chest, toward your heart, and just placing your hands onto your heart. So your eyes are closed, your head's bowed down toward your chest, bringing your awareness into your heart space, and just placing your hands, your physical touch, onto your chest. And just breathing. Nice, big, slow, deep breaths. In through your nose. And out through your nose. Good. Just allowing yourself to come into your heart space. Feeling your heart beating in your chest. Feeling the breath moving in and out of your body. Just coming back home to your true self. And so when we ask questions to ourselves, if we do this, what you're doing right now, and you start asking these questions and channel your energy and focus directly toward your heart, you'll find you'll probably receive different answers than if you were to have eyes open, being more in your mental space a lot of the time, if that little lizard is more active. Which, another way to calm that lizard, if we see our lizard as, it's like our fight or flight system, right? So as our sympathetic nervous system, our stress levels are high, this place of safety will come in a lot more. So the more that we can do to regulate our nervous system, the less this little lizard voice will pipe up for safety. And obviously this lizard voice, it's there for a reason, right? It's there to keep us safe. So there are times where it will share things where we are physically in danger and we are to be moved from that environment, and it is very valid. So it's not saying that what the lizard has to say is not valid. But when you allow your nervous system to come back into regulation, which is why putting your hands on your heart and coming back to your breath and taking those big, deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. Just really allowing them to start becoming a lot more slow. Bring your conscious awareness to your breath. Because when we're stressed, we'll do shorter breaths, usually up in our chest space. And then when we consciously allow our diaphragm or our belly to get involved, you see babies, they breathe with their bellies. It's inviting you even to just place your hand over your belly. And as you're taking your next deep breath in, breathing in through your nose and allowing your belly to be the very first thing that expands out. One of our cranial nerves that is involved with our parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest and healing part of our nervous system, is activated by that vagus nerve that goes through our diaphragm. So that's why with breathing, it brings that parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest, into play a little bit more. And then that lizard will calm down. And then you can really tune into that other voice of your heart. So just inviting you to take a few big deep breaths in through your nose and allowing that belly to expand out as large as it can, and then filling up your ribs and then allowing your chest to fill up. And then exhaling. And just offering yourself the space to just do a few more deep breaths like that. Good. Just really allowing all of your energy to come back into your body, into your heart, back into your breath. Coming back home to your true self, your soul self, your heart self. A lot of those voices in the mind can actually be voices of other people as well, our family, our friends who want things for us. So it's really not until we come into this heart space where we start tuning in more to our own true, authentic, unique desires, dreams, goals, needs, things that our body needs in order to get back to a place of balance, homeostasis, of happiness, joy. So just as you're tuning into your heart, just asking maybe some questions. What is it that my body needs right now? to feel most alive and vibrant. And just seeing what voice comes through when you're channeling your energy toward your heart. Just inviting you to write that answer down. And you'll notice that this voice is different. It's a lot more calm. It's more balanced. It's more peaceful. Or sometimes the one in the mind can be a bit more frantic. Which is all just your nervous system, right? When our nervous system is all jazzed up and we're running around, we're stressed, all of this stuff, the little voice is a little bit chaotic. Right? When we allow ourselves space to breathe and be and get out in nature and just take that time for ourselves, doing our big breathings, doing a meditation, it's more peaceful and calm. So it's just yet another piece that shows that we are the creators of our reality when we have this deeper understanding of how we work, how our humans work, how our nervous systems work, and how we actually consciously create life based on this place. Right? When we're unconsciously creating our lives based off of all of those stories and beliefs that we picked up from our parents or our childhood or our culture or society, we're living through that lizard's voice. We're going to be living a life that is not actually our own. And that's when we'll be running around stressed and unfulfilled. And that's really one of the biggest epidemics going on in society right now, is that we are very overstressed, we're overworked, and we're living from this lizard part of our brain. And that's why most of us are unhappy or grumpy or unfulfilled. And so just by doing simple things to be able to get back to regulating your nervous system so that you can listen to that voice of the heart again and get tuned back into that voice of the heart. And that's the work that I do with my clients. It's helping you to get in tune with yourself, building this relationship with yourself again, and starting to trust yourself to make decisions again. So you no longer have to go to the outside world to seek advice as to what you are to do with your life. Because in reality, nobody knows what's best for you besides you. And that is a 100% truth. And that may feel scary at times, because you maybe making decisions isn't something that you feel confident doing right now for yourself. So it's okay to have people outside of yourself to support you making decisions while you're building that confidence in yourself and regaining that trust within yourself to listen to that heart voice. Right? It's a natural progression. You can't just jump from listening to that lizard voice and it leading us down all these wild, crazy paths and then lacking trust within ourselves to guide ourselves. Then we seek outside things in order to guide us, other people. We just kind of tag along with other people's dreams and goals and visions or live through them. It takes time for us to be able to cultivate that new relationship with ourselves, where we start listening to that heart voice or soul voice, and we start recognizing that when we do that, it starts actually bringing us things that are good. Right? Because it's often sometimes we're just like, oh my gosh, something bad's going to happen. It's happened in the past. Oh my gosh, nope, can't do that. Like, what's next? Right? And that's all coming from that nervous system of the lizard, the safety. And so you can see that as we start becoming conscious creators and we start listening more and building trust in ourselves, in our heart voice, and our soul voice, and we start taking action, aligned action, and following through on the messages that our heart gives us, right? If we ask our heart, what is it my body needs right now? And it says that it needs movement, and I decide to stay sitting on the couch, then I'm not honoring that inner voice, right? So this is where the aligned action comes in, and it takes some courage and some strength to be able to follow through and start building trust with that little inner voice again, that heart and soul voice. That's why mentorship and having somebody guiding you and supporting you is always great. Somebody to hold you and nurture you and believe in you until you start believing in yourself. But as you continue to follow and listen to that soul voice, you'll start recognizing that things just keep getting better and better. And as I started going on this journey, that was something that I said to myself. I was just like, oh my gosh, life just keeps getting better and better for me. It keeps getting better and better. And I kept reaffirming that to myself as I went through life. And sure enough, every single time I tuned into my heart, life kept getting better and better. And looking back, I'm like, wow, the life that I live today, it's like a dream. And it's going to keep getting better and better. And it truly is. And so it's a big drastic shift. It can seem like it. But in reality, it's very simple. Right? When we're feeling stressed, when we're feeling that little lizard kicking in, and we're feeling anxious in our bodies and discomfort in our physical bodies, that's just a little red flag coming up saying, okay, we need to go inward. Right? And what usually happens when our body gets into that red flag zone and we don't notice it is that we will start projecting things outside of ourselves. So we might start becoming very judgmental or blaming other people or getting angry with other people or frustrated with other people. And it starts projecting from our inside world into our outside world, which is just that next level of us bringing awareness to what's going on within. Right? So when you start recognizing that you're doing that, that's like another level of red flag, being like, yo, your nervous system is dysregulated and you need to start coming back home to yourself again. So how can you create space for yourself? What are the things that bring you back to that place of inner peace or something similar to it, something relative to where you're currently at? Maybe it's going out in nature. Maybe it's listening to music. Maybe it's going in water. Water is very grounding. Maybe it's going for a nap. Maybe it's journaling. What are the things that you can do in order to start bringing yourself back to that regulated nervous system? There's lots of things you can do, breath work. So that's where it is. It's like we get to start learning a new way of being and being curious and explorative as to what it is that brings us those inner peace in our emotions. And taking note of those things. And also, what are the things that are making us feel stressed and chaotic, right? And limiting those things. And this is really something that has changed my life drastically. And so I shared that with the students, and this was a little bit more in depth. So if they're listening to this, they would probably get a little bit more in-depth detail about exactly what I shared, which is great. But it really allows us to be able to start coming home to ourselves, and from that place we can start creating our lives from an authentic place, because the way that we live our lives individually is not going to look like anybody else, because we are not everybody else. We are all unique, and that's the way that we were designed to be. We were designed to bring our unique contributions to the world, and it's not really until the world isn't going to become a better place until we start honoring that unique expression that we have within our soul, because we were all put here for a reason. We're all put here to bring that vibration, and as we follow that unique path, what happens? We start being happier, joyful. What happens when you have a good day? It ripples out to everybody around you, right? And it really is that simple. The change in the world that is required is simply us leaning into our own hearts or souls' voices and start reigniting our soul and listening to that. And that was why I named my business Reignite Your Soul as well. Because on my journey, I kind of got to that place where I was so immersed in that lizard voice that I didn't even know that soul or heart voice existed. And I really had to reignite my soul. I had to reignite my belief and my trust in that soul voice so that I could start creating my life the way that I wanted to. When it comes to the person that I become, when it comes to what my business looks like, the way that I make money, the way that I bring impact to the world, the contribution that I want to make, the relationships that I have, the excitement, the fun, all of it. It's all just a big creation. This planet is just a big planet of creation, and humans are the master creators. And so I hope that this episode served you. If you feel like it will be of value to anybody that you know, please feel free to share it. I will be doing more of these episodes with me just on here, kind of sharing stuff like that, as well as the interviews with other guests and stuff like that. If you or somebody you know wants to come on the podcast and be a guest, feel free to reach out and let me know. And I can send you a little application form to come on and be a guest with me. I'm always open to having amazing chats with new people and whatever it is that you feel you want to share with the world, then this is an open platform for it. And I'm so proud of you for being here and investing this time into yourself and learning more about yourself and how you can bring your contribution to the world. So massively celebrating you for expanding your mind, opening up your heart so that you can embody an entirely new way of being. And I'm sending you so much love for your day today. I hope that you have the most incredible day. I love you so much. And I will maybe see you soon, or I will chat with you soon on the next podcast, or say hello on social media. Feel free to send me a message on Instagram or Facebook Messenger and just say hello and introduce yourself. I'd love to meet you. But enjoy your day. I love you so much. And thanks again for being here with me.